So, all you sadists out there watching, hoping for the best, well, sorry, you ain't gonna see it. I like my fingers right where they are too much. Like I say, knives. Everyone has their own cutting style. I've seen guys holding knives way up here. I've seen them hold them back here. Hell, I've seen Benny Hanna-Schaefer do things with knives that scare the shit out of me. I mean, if I started doing some of the stuff those guys were doing, I'd come out here, you know, bloody, to say the least. To say the least. Alright, now we got that. And I'm going to throw that in this big old bowl also. One big old bowl there. Got a chunk of stem there. I don't like to cook the stems because they're kind of hard. And if you come across it when you're eating, it's kind of a thing that you really don't want to serve anyone. I don't want to eat it, so I'm not going to serve it to anyone else. Let's put it that way. Okay. Right there, you have what's called a mirepoix. French term for, I don't know, menage a trois is 3 something, so mirepoix is celery, onion, carrot. It's a standard garnish, seasoning, addition to all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. Oh, before I put that over there, put these over here. This is what we're going to cook our pot roast in. Right here I got a, what's normally called a strap roaster. We've got these big old straps across the back of it. This here is a steam table pan. It's a 4-inch standard size steam table pan, or a hotel pan they call them too. I like to call them steam table pans because they all stick them in steam tables. Although everyone cooks damn things. Everybody. Stainless steel. This one's aluminum. I prefer stainless steel for cooking, but aluminum is just as good, although it doesn't give out a little bit of oxide. I don't really care much for, but oh well. This is a vegetable oil. Show the label, you know what brand I use. I'm not going to try not to show any brands when I'm doing this, because I really don't care to endorse anyone's product. Unless they pay me, then I'll go and slut for anybody if you give me enough money. Come on, everyone has a price. Anyway, dumped a little bit of oil there. How much? Enough to coat those vegetables with oil. Oil in here. How much? About enough to coat the sides and bottom of this pan, or these pans here. So, at this point we get to the main ingredient. This here is called a chuck roll. Play with that word a few times. Chuck roll. It's a chuck roll up your chuck hole. Yeah. Okay. This is how I buy chuck roast or chuck from our distributor. It comes in this form here. It's a fairly good piece of meat. You see this in the supermarkets all the time, but it's not like this. Unless you go to some huge, you know, Sam's Club or something like that, where you can actually buy something like this, called a chuck roll. This is a good 20 pounds, if not a, see what do I got here? 61.9 pounds for 3 of these. This is exceptionally big. The other 2, this is probably closer to 25 pounds. There. In all its beauty. So, what we have to do is make this into a chuck roast type piece of meat. As you can see, it's long and narrow, so since it's that way, we might as well cut it that way too, because it would make no sense whatsoever not to. Nah, I'm going to start from the other end. And I'm going to change knife because this one isn't good for that. This one's much better. The reason why, this is a meat slicing knife and it's got a nice thin blade on it, rather than this got a thick blade which will drag when I'm cutting through the meat. I'm going to cut this into chunks all the way across here, approximately 1.5 to 2 inches, somewhere in there. And since it's kind of a lopsided piece of meat on the end, you just gotta kind of have to wing it on the first piece. That's all right, we'll still use it, no problem. First piece I always take and kind of smear it around inside the bottom of the pan here. Take all that oil and just kind of move it to the side and the bottom and all over, and just kind of get it all nice and covered. Then we can go 2 inches, approximately. You don't have to get a ruler out and start measuring it. If you can't figure out what 2 inches is, no, I won't say that. I'll think it though. 2 inches, approximately. 2 inches. Didn't say approximately that time. That was right on, perfect. Okay, another one. And another one. Chuck roast is a fatty piece of meat, very fatty. It's several different muscle combinations that are in this thing. I can count at least, probably 3 of them there at least, maybe 4. It doesn't make good steak. Chuck steak can be really, really tough, especially if you grill it. And you really can't cook it to medium rare like you would a T-bone or a ribeye or something like that. It would just be terrible. And if you cooked it well done, it'd even be worse. This meat likes to be braised, and that's the method I'll be using to cook it. So we take all this, and stick them in here. That way fairly tight. Strangely, what will happen as this cooks, it actually expands first. It'll probably expand by about 1/3 in the pot here. I think this one here will go nicely. Okay. That there's enough to cook about excuse me. That there's enough to feed about 40, 50 people, depending upon how much you give them. I like to give a relatively healthy portion here. USDA recommendation is 4 ounces of meat serving per meal. You ever see a 4-ounce serving of meat? It is literally that big by like that. And somebody throws that on a plate for me, unless you got a whole bunch of other stuff with it, that just isn't enough. So I still got to fill up this pan here. And this one here is a little smaller. Now I know there aren't any PETA people watching anymore after they see me pull these things out. I'll say a few things about PETA. It's very noble that you think animals should be treated fairly, not with any cruelty. But here's the kick. In this world that we live in, there are 3 types of animals. There are herbivores, there are carnivores, and then there are omnivores. Human beings fall into that latter category, contrary to all these vegetarians and other people that insist that meat's murder. Well, I don't think this cow was murdered. I think it lived a fairly decent life. You know, I mean, come on, it's a cow. It's not going to Oxford. And they slaughtered it in probably the most humane way possible. So I'd have something to eat that ain't beans,